Hey, it's Ian from Las Vegas Scooters and Lifts, and today I want to talk about batteries or batteries. Okay, so today's subject is about batteries, and it's about one of the most common questions we get asked from customers who come in to look at scooters, power wheelchairs, so on and so forth. Yeah, it's the biggest question we get asked is how long will the batteries last? How far will the scooter go on the batteries? When do I need to charge them? How long do I need to charge them for? These are all the questions we get asked. We did actually put on our website a battery guide for you to download and read. We've put it on our resources page under how do I care for the batteries. It's a basic battery guide there, which it gives you all this information that I'm going to give you today. But I've also got to talk about lithium ion batteries as well. So yeah, so the most common battery that these mobility scooters use at present are what's called the sealed lead acid, glass mat, and gel batteries. Now the difference between the SLA AGMs and gel batteries, there is a big price difference between the two, the sealed lead acid glass mat, and the gel batteries. So basically it's just the makeup of the battery, how they fill it with a gel rather than liquid acid like you do on your car battery. It's just like a distilled water and acid mix. But don't ever buy a car battery thinking, or a lawnmower battery, or any kind of starter battery to put in these scooters. The makeup is so different. It's all down to cold cranking amps with a vehicle, where it needs to give a jolt of power to start an engine, so it needs all the power at once. Whereas a mobility scooter or a power wheelchair needs the power over a prolonged period of time. So the makeup of battery is totally different. So never ever do that, because I have seen in the past where somebody has put two motorbike batteries in a large scooter or a power chair actually, and it blew the controller. It was just a surge of power because it put too much power too quickly into the controller, and it blew it. So don't ever do that. It's not good for the scooter, and you probably ended up with an expensive repair bill. But basically, a sealed lead acid for a mobility scooter is called a deep cycle battery, and these are the ones we use. These are like your standard sizes of batteries, like your 12s, 18s, 22s, and 35s and onwards and upwards, depending on the size of the scooter, and its weight capacity depends on the size of batteries. And that's the key thing with these batteries, is how you look after them. And what I mean by that is the amount of times you charge them and where you store them. So they're the key two factors with these batteries to get good longevity out of your batteries. As long as you've got a good set of batteries, they should last you, depending on how many times you charge it, a year, 2 years, 3 years. I've seen 7 years where they haven't used the scooter much, but they've looked after the batteries, they've stored them in the correct place. But I'll go into more details in storage and charging. A big question we get asked is, how long do my batteries last? Well, it's about storage and charging. They're your two factors with these batteries. Where I store them and how I charge them. So where you store them basically means if they're inside the house and the air conditioning's on, it's nice temperature, if you feel comfortable, your batteries will be comfortable. If you put them in a hot garage or even a cold garage, some places in the States they get down below God knows what temperatures, and here in Las Vegas we get up into the hell's burning over temperatures. And once you drive your car into a garage and you put your scooter in the garage, the heat from the car will increase the heat in the garage, Not good for these batteries. Do not ever leave them in the garage. Oh, in the winter time in Las Vegas, it's not too bad. It's like 70, 60 degrees. It's not too bad. It will actually, I think, tell you the temperature ranges in your user manual and also on the batteries. Yeah, if we look at these batteries here, it actually gives you a little breakdown. It's hard to see with these batteries with the glare of the lights, but and you can tell it's usually depicted on the numbers of the batteries, but they also do break it down for you here. That's their model number 12220, which is basically 12 volt, 22 amp hour. So that's how you find out on your battery what your battery is. As you can see by these batteries, they're all nicely swollen. This is very difficult to get out of the battery pack. You can see where they've started to balloon out the side of the battery on both sides, and also the top is not. It's all bumpy and whatever, and that's what a battery should look. Should be nice and how you expect it, nice and square and straight, and not a problem. So yeah, on most batteries it will give you some information of what size the battery is. As you can see, these are SP1222, again 12 volt, 22 amp hour. NB basically means nut and bolt. That's just the top connection of the battery. That's these things here, the tabs, and that's how it's secured, is nut and bolt. There's like three main connection type. You've got tab top, or these are called F connections. These are F2s. They make F1, F2, and they also do a internal thread. So that would be IT, and that would be basically a threaded insert into the battery where you would put nut and bolt onto it there and connect your battery connections via a nut and bolt. And then nut and bolt connection tabs, which are these. And that tends to be all you tend to see in a mobility scooter, is those. But there are other different types of connection, like on this little motorbike battery. These are what you call square top or box top connections, where you would connect your motorcycle or lawnmower to those little box connections. And that's how you can tell that they're not made for scooters. These are made for scooters, so it's just an example of that. So yeah, so storage, definitely keep them inside the house where it's nice and cool, and the temperature's constant, never in sort of hot environments or extremely cold environments, because this is what happens in Vegas. They dry out and basically sulfate inside the battery. The material, the liquid material, dries up, especially when you leave it on charge as well. In a hot environment, it'll just start to dry the cells inside and sulfate the liquid inside, and that's what causes it to swell like that. So never store them in a garage. As best possible, remove the battery pack from the scooter, and even inside the car, inside the garage, it's going to be too hot. So best thing, remove the battery pack, take it inside, put it on charge, and then use it that way. Best way to do it is just take it in the house. Typically these kind of batteries, all your smaller SLAs, you get around an average of 300 to 350 charges per life cycle of batteries. So if you charge your scooter every day, day after day, 365 days a year, then your batteries are going to be toast in a year. They're going to be done in 1 year. They're going to be outcycled, and it's going to start losing the range. You'll slowly see your lights dissipating a lot quicker. So best thing to do is, these batteries are what they call deep cycle batteries, and basically what that means is you would charge the battery up, use it to as much as you can of the range of the batteries until the lights on your top console or the gauge starts to go down into the yellow. You don't really want to go too far knowing the age of the battery. If you know you've had them in there a year or two and you're thinking, I want to go to Disneyland for 12 hours and drive around, unless you've got brand new batteries in there and your scooter's at tip-top shape and you're below the weight capacity for your scooter, I would recommend getting your batteries checked out or even replacing them, because you're going to rely on that scooter to do a 12-hour job of carry you around. And that's the same here for Las Vegas. If you're visiting Las Vegas and you're driving around these casinos, just a great example, Jenny had to use one of our scooters one night and we went to Mandalay Bay and we decided to go to New York, New York, which is just 2 hotels next to each other. So we decided to drive from Mandalay Bay, she did, and I walked, and I did the pedometer on my phone, and it was 5 miles from Mandalay Bay to New York and back. So that's 5 miles. That's like, on most of these smaller type scooters, your little Travelers, Traveler Pro, Eco 3, all that sort of the smaller battery types, that's pushing the scooter to its max. You're going to be done. Your batteries are going to be done. You usually get 6 to 8 miles. So you're not going to go far on those littler batteries. The larger battery packs, which are your 22s, your 18s, these size, as you can see, that's the difference between the 2 sizes. There's more makeup in the 22s and the 18s and the 12s, so hence why you get a bigger distance with a bigger battery. So charging, how long do I charge these batteries? In your user manuals, again, it should give you a basic guideline of how long to charge these batteries for. Now, on all chargers, they'll have a power light and a charge light, usually red and green. That's just to keep it simple. So on a lot of chargers, especially from Pride, Golden Drive, the power light will be red, and sometimes they turn green when they're actually charging at the same time, but usually they're red to tell you that the power is active. And then you'll have a charge light. It'll either be off or it'll change from green to red. Red always means that it's charging. If it doesn't do anything, if the light doesn't come on, then there's a problem with your battery or the connection that charges your battery, or even the charger itself. The wire's broken in the charger or something like that, or even a fuse on the scooter. So always check your fuses. It's just to make sure that the charge port, either on your battery pack, which you can see there at the front of this battery pack, you have your charge port and a little fuse there. So also on your Pride scooters, you have a charge port. Most scooters actually nowadays have a charge port at the top there, and on the Pride scooters they also have a little fuse underneath there as well for that charge port. Some of the Traveller Pluses and Sport have the fuses just here on the tiller, on the plastic shroud, but this one doesn't. But just to give you an idea where to look for your fuses, they're usually around about 3 or 5 amp, so nothing bigger than that, because if you do have a bigger fuse in there and put your charger in, there's a problem. It probably won't blow the fuse, or it'll cause damage before it blows the fuse. So always put the recommended size fuses in your scooter. Yeah, back to charging. So how long do I charge my scooter battery for? Your charger is a very sensible piece of equipment for your scooter. It'll normally tell you when it's charging and when it's finished charging. Some of them do a sequence of flashes to give you like a tendering, basically trickle charging the battery. Usually it's between 8 and 10 hours, depending on the status of the battery. In other words, how much charge has been depleted out of the battery. So between 8 and 10 hours, and no more than 14 hours. If you go beyond 14 hours, just a little bit, it's not too bad. 15 hours, you're not going to be the end of the world, but definitely don't leave them on days and on days upon days. That will damage the batteries, and that's what will happen. It'll start to swell the batteries over time, as well as a heated environment or a cold environment, that's where you're going to get damaged. So basically plug them in the night before and then charge them overnight. Get up in the morning, make sure the light on your charger has either gone out or it's gone to green saying it's fully charged, and then just disconnect the charger from the battery pack. If you're not going to use the scooter, just leave the battery pack off the scooter. That way it's not sending power through the scooter and draining the battery. It's a bit like your TV on standby. You leave a little red light on your TV and it's on standby. It's still drawing power. So best thing is just leave the battery pack off the scooter if you're not going to use the scooter for a prolonged period of time. Okay, so another thing with chargers is they do get hot when they are charging. So one of the key things that we tell our customers, apart from storage and charge times, is also never ever plug these chargers into an extension cord. And the reason being is they get hot and it can actually create heat in the charging cord, in the extension cord. Yeah, don't ever plug them into those, always directly into the wall socket. So your charger goes into your wall socket and then your charger end goes into your scooter or your battery pack. So just to save yourself any problems, because what it can do is overheat the charger, and it can also either cause it to die or it can actually trip. I've seen it where the charger is actually tripped. It shows a red light that it's charging and it's not actually charging the batteries. It's tripped. It's not sending out charge and it depleted the batteries. So you would have to replace both the charger and the batteries. So maybe the charger, but always get them checked out if you do come across that scenario. Take them into your local dealer or take them into a battery store and get them to check out the status of your batteries. I go by knowledge, by experience of what I've seen in the past, and a basic load tester like this thing here, just a cheap $20 load tester. I tend to find that the best way to check out a battery is to drive the scooter basically. They usually fail after 2 miles if the customer's having problems with distance. 9 times out of 10, scooter problems are batteries. Okay, so just a couple more things to do with chargers, and your charger can actually give you a good indication to whether or not your batteries are coming to their end of their life. If you think that your batteries are starting to age, one thing you can check is that when you go to charge your batteries, I've seen this in the past where we've put a charger on a battery pack and we've gone back to look at it a couple of minutes later, so like say 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes later, and the charger light has gone to green. We know when our rentals go out that most of the time people don't charge them up when we go pick them up, so we know the batteries are pretty low. So when we put them on charge, we go back in about 15-20 minutes later and check the charge status, make sure that the charge is still charging. And if your charger actually goes green, or like it's completely charged, after around 15-20 minutes, you may have low batteries or bad batteries. That's a good indication that your charger and your batteries think they're charged. Unplug the charger, plug it back in again, see if the red light charging light comes back on, and again check it again in 20 minutes. If that green light's gone on again, then it's time to replace your batteries, because they're not significantly charged enough after 20 minutes if you know you have low batteries in your scooter or wheelchair. So that's a good indication there on what the chargers can tell you. So another point with chargers is going back to buying online. Now, we've bought chargers on online shopping channels and things like that, eBay and Amazon and things like that. Yeah, you can get these chargers reasonably cheap on, let's say, Amazon platform. You can get them for around about $20-$30. But the ones we've bought, just be careful, because the 3 pins on these chargers are the ones we've seen when buying online, like eBay and Amazon. they don't wire up the inhibit pin on the charger connector. Basically, your 3 pins. The ones that you get from Pride, Golden Drive, and any other manufacturer, they'll have the middle pin connected to the inhibit, and what that basically does is stops you from moving the scooter if the charger is still plugged into the scooter or battery box. Now that's a safety feature built into these manufacturers' chargers, so just be careful if you do buy these chargers online, the cheaper ones at Amazon, etc. They more than likely won't have that inhibit enabled, and you'll leave the charger plugged in and you'll be able to move the scooter. It won't activate that safety feature on your scooter, and what could happen is you could get on the scooter forgetting that you've got the charger plugged in, drive off on the scooter with the charger still plugged in, and you could damage either the charger and or the charger port. So make sure your charger has the inhibit enabled in the charger. Okay, another little fact to do with the chargers and also checking the status of your batteries is we also, when we put our scooters on charge, and we usually do it overnight, and if we come back in the morning and the charger light is still red and still charging, that indicates to me that the batteries are pretty much well spent, or at least one of them is done, but change them in pairs like I said. So yeah, it's a good indication. If it's gone beyond 14 hours and the charging light is still activated and it's still charging, then that could indicate that you've got bad batteries in your scooter or power chair. And yeah, so it's just another little fact to help you determine whether your batteries are no good. But one of the biggest things you can look for is as you're driving along, if you have an analog gauge like the one with the needle, as you pull away, if you have a scooter, if you pull away and the needle goes into the red instantly and then picks back up and stays in kind of like a yellow and a little bit into the green range, definitely got bad batteries, or batteries need changing, or it hasn't been charged correctly. So that's a good indication there. On power wheelchairs, they typically have a LED set of lights like the new scooters do, where they have an LED dot light indicator. And they're a bit more difficult to read, so they kind of react a little bit slower. It's kind of what we do. It's like the load test that we do with the gauge. That's why I like the needles better. It shows you a sweep of what the power range is actually doing in the battery, which is a great example with that battery pack there I've just got on a load test there. So this is like when you pull the throttle over your scooter, that's what it does. It's, see how it's going into the weak. So that's like pulling all the power from the battery, as if you would be pressing the throttle. The motor's draining the battery to make motion, basically. Yeah, so with power wheelchairs, LED indicators, like on most newer scooters, they're a little bit more difficult to read. They'll tend to diminish over a period of time. Sometimes with the LEDs, if the battery's in a real bad state, where they're really low, then the lights will diminish really quickly. And that's a good indication that your batteries are pretty poor and want replacing, or they haven't been charged correctly. So yeah, look at your battery indicator. It's not a definitive readout, neither of them, but it gives you a good idea of where your batteries are. So if you do get on your scooter and you have an LED light on, pull away full speed, or if you can, full throttle. Watch the lights. If they go down quickly, then you may have a battery problem. On the Pride Mobility scooters, if you have bad batteries, then it'll actually give you a beep code, whether it be too much voltage or not enough voltage. It basically means if it's overcharged, it'll beep 3 times. I've never ever heard that. But I have heard the 2 beep code when the batteries are at such a low state, when they've been kept in storage for a prolonged period of time and not been charged, and you go to pull the throttle, the batteries deplete really quickly, and the scooter will then, as the batteries come back up to 12 volt, the scooter will beep twice, and that basically means low voltage, and that's typically because the batteries are beyond the state of charge and they won't replace it. So just key little things there. Always looking to use the manual under troubleshooting as well, and that will give you most of your sort of answers to your questions if you have any problems with your scooter. The first problem you'll have with a scooter is typically batteries. Usually after a year, after 2 years, and the customers will don't know what's going on, I'm losing range, or the charger won't charge the batteries anymore. These chargers, if your batteries go below a certain voltage, then the charger will not kick in. It'll just have the power light on and the charge light will not engage. It will not charge the batteries. So there's no bringing them back. I've seen videos on YouTube and the like where people have disassembled these batteries. They've taken these covers off and removed the caps, these covers, to empty out the contents and then try and rejuvenate them by filling them up with new liquid, blah blah blah. But that's one, it's a dangerous process. I wouldn't recommend anybody do that, and it's been tried and it doesn't work. They only last for a few months and then you just basically got to replace them. I don't recommend anybody do that, especially with acid. You have to dispose of that sensibly, so I just don't recommend. Leave it to the recyclers to do that. So just replace your batteries. These are cheap enough. For the sake of your health and the environment, don't try and rejuvenate these batteries. It just doesn't work. Just get new batteries. If you rely on the scooter, get new batteries. Don't try and mess with them. Don't try and put them on a car charger either. So that's another big thing with these batteries, especially with mobility scooters. Yeah, so using car chargers to charge batteries for a scooter, these smaller batteries, most car chargers, their ampage is going to be way too high for these batteries, unless it's like a 55 or a 75 amp hour. But don't try and charge the smaller batteries, the 12s, the 18s, 22s. It'll just put too much ampage into the battery. You should never use that. Always use the charger that you got with the scooter. It's rated for 24 volts. Those batteries are wired together. Use that. It's the right ampage. Using a wrong ampage charger on your batteries is going to give you some adverse effects. Most of the smaller batteries, your 18s and your 12s and lower, you're probably looking at a 2 amp charger. Now on the back of the charger, I'll put a picture up on the screen about there. On the back of the charger, what you want to look for is the output value on the charger, and it'll say output 24V for 24 volts, and then something like 2A, 3A, 3.5A. Some chargers, they do actually tell you what batteries you should use with that charger. So with your smaller batteries, your 18s, like I say, your 12s, your 10s, 2 amp chargers suffice, good enough for charging those. Don't try and use something that's bigger than that. You may be able to get away with a 3 amp charger on 18 amp hour batteries. 22 amps, yes, you could use a 3 amp. But 18s, 35s, I've seen 32s, but also 40s, you can use a 3.5 to 4 amp charger to charge those. That's sufficient enough. Don't try and put an 8 amp charger on something too small like the 12s, 18s, 22s. It'll just charge them too quickly, create too much heat and cause problems for your battery, and vice versa as well. It'll be the same if you try and use a 2 amp charger on 75 amp hour batteries. It won't damage the batteries, but it'll take forever to charge them, so, and it may overheat the charger. So always use a correct amp charger with your correct batteries. So like I say, 12s, 18s 2 amp, 35s 3 amp to 4 amp, 40s 4 amp, 55s 5 amp, 75s 8 amp. So usually your bigger wheelchairs take a bigger batteries, like a 614 HD, they'll take 55 amp hour batteries. So when you're looking for chargers, be careful when you buy them online. Places like eBay, Amazon, you can find these like $20, $30 chargers. It may be the right voltage and it may be the right ampage, but be careful, don't use lithium ion chargers on SLA batteries, it will damage them. And the other way around as well, using lithium on SLAs it will damage, SLAs on lithium it will damage each battery. So make sure you use the correct charger made for that type of batteries. It used to be some of the chargers, the SLA ones, you couldn't use on gel batteries and vice versa. Yeah, most chargers nowadays you can use either charger on gel or SLA. On the back of the charger it'll tell you if it's sealed lead acid or gel batteries that you can use. Okay, where do I source my batteries? Here's another subject we get asked about, is where do I get my batteries from? Or they'll come into our store and say, I need some batteries for my scooter, how much are they? And we'll give them a price. And they'll say, well, I can get them on Amazon for $2. I can get them on Amazon for this and eBay for that and blah, blah, blah. And everyone's we ordered from eBay, Amazon, online sellers, even a online supplier. And we ended up replacing more than we sold. So we've actually found a very good supply here in Las Vegas. So we source our batteries from them. And they're great with their warranty. Any problems with the batteries, they'll exchange them. Typically your batteries, on most batteries including lithium ion, they'll only have a 6 months to a year maximum warranty. Now basically the warranty only covers for manufacturer defects. In other words, if there's a problem with the cells inside the batteries, or a lithium ion battery will have a problem where it's just not charging correctly, or there's a fault with it, then they will replace the battery if it's a manufacturer's defect. They will not replace a battery if you have not stored it or charged it correctly, or you've misused the battery for any way. And there's a way they can tell that. Our supplier can check those out when we return our batteries. Yeah, so and we tried, like I said, we tried buying batteries online from eBay, from all these online sellers, and 99.999% of the time they came damaged through the post. They were either dropped or they were old. I always check date marks on batteries. You just don't know how long these sellers have had these batteries. There's a lot of sellers online, they'll buy in bulk and they'll sit on that product for years on end and claim they're brand new batteries. They won't tell you what the dates are, and you can't really tell by the pictures, but we found that most of the problems were from delivery. They weren't packaged correctly. 9 times out of 10 they won't package them because of the price of shipping. They'll put them in a flat rate shipping box, which we've seen. The ones we ordered came in a flat rate box, not in the original packaging, no protection to the batteries, and they actually dropped them and cracked the batteries, and it was leaking acid out. So I always say get them locally. That way you can go back to a store if there is a problem and they'll replace them for you. Like us, we have a local supplier. You have a problem with your batteries, bring them back to us, they'll exchange them if there's a problem. Easy as that. And you know the batteries are fresh. We buy them from our supplier and they have a constant supply. They're one of the biggest suppliers in the country of these batteries. I've been dealing with them for over 7 years and we very rarely get bad batteries. You know, it does happen. I'm not saying it's not the magical company that don't have problems, because they do, and you do have problems every now and again, but luckily we don't have very many. I would say literally maybe four batteries a year, if we're lucky, that we have problems with. And like I said, you can usually tell if it's a bad battery. It's very rare you'll see 2 batteries that are bad. I've seen it. I've actually documented where two batteries have been bad, but it's usually one battery will go down. It will usually have one bad battery out of the two batteries in your pack. And the way you do that is through a load test. You put a load tester on each battery and you see where the voltage difference is. And then always change your batteries in pairs on these scooters, because you don't want to be chasing one bad battery after one bad battery after one bad battery every 6 months or even less. Best to replace them in pairs, so you know you've got two good batteries. Then if there is a problem, you can indicate to where you got them from that I'm having problems with my battery. They should do a load test and test the batteries, and then they'll indicate that you have a manufacturer's defect, and that way you'll be able to get replacement batteries. So lithium ion batteries, they're totally different type of batteries. Obviously the biggest thing with lithium ion batteries, or the two biggest things with lithium batteries, are price and how much they weigh. And there is also restrictions on those batteries, which I'll get to in a minute. So they are lighter weight. They're basically a lot of tiny little cells all wired together in a block with a circuit board. And usually the size of the batteries are a lot smaller, but give the same amount of voltage and ampage that two of the larger batteries would give you. So that's why you can get lightweight scooters, lightweight folding scooters, like I did in my folding scooter videos. The biggest downside with those batteries are their expense. The price to replace those batteries are usually $600 and above to replace those batteries, whereas to replace the average these size batteries, your average SLAs, you're probably looking $170, maybe $200, depending where you get them from. So you can get them cheaper online, of course, yeah, but I wouldn't recommend it. Like I just said, it's every time we did it, they were bad. So I'm not saying that every time you're going to order it online they're going to be bad, but our experience is we've never had good luck with them. So yeah, so the biggest expense with the lithium ion is the price to replace those kind of batteries. But what you have to judge is that a lithium ion battery will last a hell of a lot longer than your standard sealed lead acid battery. Like I said, you maybe get 2 to 3 years. They say 3 to 5, but I always say 2 to 3 years. Due to charging and use, you'll have to replace these batteries. And the more you charge them, the quicker they're going to deplete, and you'll be doing it in a year and a half. So on average, about 2 years, year and a half to 2 years. With lithium ion batteries, they tend to last 5 years. So you're replacing the expense of changing these. Let's say you have to change them every year at let's say $200 per year, and you do that 5 times, so that's 2, 4, 6, 8, that's $1,000 in 5 years. Whereas your lithium battery, it's going to last you 5 years. So it's kind of the same price, but having to do it less often. It's just that big bill when they do need replacing. The charging for lithium batteries is also different to sealed lead acid. I mentioned before, you're around about get 300 to 350 charges per life cycle of battery. And the way to charge them is use them, then charge them, then use them, then charge them. It's not to top them up. Don't try and top these batteries up. You can, but you're taking up a charge for every time you top it up. In some scenarios, you have to do that. Say you're out and about and you stop for lunch and your battery's getting a little bit low, then yes, you can top it up because you need to have to do that. Lithium ion batteries actually like it when you do that. It's like your phone. When you charge your phone every day, guaranteed. I do. When I go home at night, I put my phone on my charger and it charges, and I know it's ready for the next day's use, because I use my phone a lot, obviously. But that's what these lithium ion batteries actually like, is to be short charged or quickly charged. It actually, I've read that it actually increases the life a little bit of the battery if you do short charging. So basically charge it a little bit, use it, charge it a little bit, can actually increase the life of the battery. Not by a lot, but it does actually, it's better. It can be done, let's put it that way. There is a drawback with the lithium ion batteries with airline travel. The FAA have put a limitation on lithium ion batteries due to the past fire incidents that they used to have with the phone batteries catching fire. I've never heard of any cases where a scooter battery has actually caught fire or caused any problems. It used to be where if you dropped the battery it would then catch fire, but I do know a few years ago they did a lot of drop testing on lithium ion batteries now, so they actually have to go through that test. So, but the airlines, we always say the best thing to do is check with the airline you're flying with. Make sure you get as much documentation from the scooter and the battery. And what you want to be looking for is the amount of amp hour it has on the battery. I can show you on one of our sealed lead acid batteries and what to look for. And this number here is your amp hour. So that's what the airlines are looking for. I think they put a limitation of 10 amp hours or 288 watts. I'll have to fact check that just to make sure it's correct. So if it's wrong, I'll put it in the video what it is. I'll get Jenny to fact check that, but yeah, that's what the airlines are looking for. And what they'll typically do is they'll either check in your scooter at the desk when you go to check in, but I know some airlines are automatic check-in or pre-check-in, and they'll take the scooter from the desk, or they'll allow you to drive the scooter to the gate, and then they'll take it from the gate and load it under the plane. But what I've heard is they'll ask you to remove the battery from the scooter. So a lithium ion battery, they'll ask you to remove it from the scooter. Your sealed lead acid batteries, you do not need to do that. On the battery packs, I'll show you. On the back of the battery packs, just there, it says what the type of battery is, and it's airline friendly. So that's the information you would then give them if you do want to take these on an airline. I do know that Enhanced Mobility, the makers of the Solex, the Mobi, the Triax and all their products, they do actually have a letter that you can actually download and print and give to the airline explaining that their batteries are airline friendly. So that just saves you doing a bit of legwork there. But yeah, check with your airline, make sure that who you're flying with and how their process works. And what they'll do is they'll remove the battery, and you would have to take the battery on board with you on the plane. So that's just in case if there is a problem with the battery, at least they can see it and know to do something about it. If the battery was actually underneath the airplane, then you've got a problem if something does happen. So that's what I believe, what I've been told that they do with the lithium ion batteries. But again, check with your airline. Phone them up, call them, whatever. Just say you have a mobility device which has a battery pack, whether it be a sealed lead acid battery pack or a lithium ion battery pack. Give them the information and they'll tell you what to do and how best to go around and what their process and their protocols are. Okay, so that's your lithium ion and that's your sealed lead acid batteries. So if you do have any questions, please either email us at sales@Las Vegas Scooters and Lifts and put in the subject batteries, and we'll answer as best we can. Also, go to our website, LasVegasLifts.com or LasVegasScootersandLifts.com, and go to the resource page and look for battery information on there. It may be in a couple of places, But yeah, just download that, have a read through it, or just read through it on your phone or whatever device you use. Yeah, so if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, like, share and subscribe. Any questions, drop them in the comments, or email us at sales@lasvegasscootersandlifts.com. We'll try and help you out and answer whatever questions you might have, even if it's just whatever scooter fits you better. We can help you out with that as well. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed the video. Have a good day. Bye now.